With so much information on the internet, how do we know what hitting advice is good and bad? Because so many of it is conflicting. This is the question that I asked a group of coaches who I trust and believe are some of the best coaches out there. And here was the response that I got. There are 3 constants that are always true across all good hitters. And those 3 things are what I'm going to share with you today. And I'll give you a hint. These things aren't swing down. They aren't swing up. They aren't keep your elbow up. In fact, we're not going to talk about mechanics hardly at all. These 3 constants are true for every single professional hitter, and it encompasses every single style. So listen to this video if you want to have a little bit more discernment on what coaches to listen to, and so that we know what's good advice and what's potentially some bad advice. Okay, so the first thing that all good hitters have is some form of rhythm. Now, sometimes this rhythm is a big movement, sometimes it's a small movement. There are some hitters like Craig Counsell who have this big old thing up here. And there's other hitters like, I think, Wade Boggs, who was like this. Some hitters move more than others, some move less, but every single good hitter has some form of rhythm. This is because we're trying to sync up our timing with the pitcher, and so that's why we need some form of rhythm. That being said, there is no right or wrong way to do this. I've heard a lot of coaches tell me, hey, less movement, you want less movement, that's what you want. But then I'll watch big leaguers on TV who have a ton of movement. There is no such thing as right or wrong as far as too much or too little movement. What matters is an individual hitter's preference, and are they able to use their personal rhythm to get the best timing. And that leads us to point number 2. Every good hitter has great timing. And this is the ironic thing about timing is the more that we think about our mechanics, oftentimes the worse timing that we have. Now again, rhythm is what happens kind of earlier on in our load and what sets our timing. And then our timing is when we actually begin the swing and when the whole kinetic chain, the energy transfers from the ground and out through our body and out through the bat. Timing is obviously essential, and as you get up to the higher levels, it gets even harder and harder to time as we have a smaller window to recognize the pitch. But every good hitter has great rhythm and great timing. Number 3 is the most mechanical of the 3. Rhythm and timing are more up here mentally. The third one is actually very physical. The third thing that every great hitter has is balance. And this isn't just true in baseball, this is true in all different sports. This is true in martial arts, this is true in sports like gymnastics, it's true across the board. Now, balance looks different for many different hitters. If you see guys like Aaron Judge, he's over here on his backside. And then guys like Barry Bonds was actually more 60-40. Most of his weight was on his front side before going into his load. Talking about this last week with Ian Jenkins, and he was saying that balance looks very different for different players, but it is a constant. Every single good hitter has some form of balance. So when it comes to who to listen to on the internet, this is how I recommend you go about doing it. If someone has a new drill for you to try, absolutely try it out and see if it works for you. And if it ends up helping your rhythm, your timing, and your balance, then it's probably a good thing. But don't be afraid to try something out and then scrap it because it's not working for you. Even in my career, there were times where certain feels helped me a ton, and then I tried it again months later and it didn't help me at all. So allow your swing to evolve and be willing to take in information from anybody. But it ultimately will boil down to those 3 things. Does this help my rhythm? Does this help my timing? Does this help my balance at the plate? Because that's ultimately going to dictate how we're able to use our athleticism in the box. As always, I'm Coach RAC with Headbanger Sports. We'll see you guys next week. Let's grow.